Hey everybody, that guy named Grant here, or Grant as I'm known to my friends, with a 10th Doctor Sonic Screwdriver mod. A lot of people were kind of bummed about this whole little button thing down here, where while it's down you press this button, and while it's up you press that button, and you don't really get anything in between. A lot of people want to do this, where you push the button, you can slide it up, you can slide it down, it stays on the whole time. So I have a little mod here, which conveniently enough, it does not change the outward appearance at all. All it does is turn your slider into the button, and it requires two tools, and they're pretty common tools too, which is nice. All you need is the screwdriver that you used on your batteries. Hopefully you have this. If you don't, then bum it off somebody, because well, if you don't have this, you probably are in a real pickle because your batteries aren't even in. So, you know, I don't even know why you're watching this. The other thing you need, I have it right here, is this drill. And this, not this exact one, obviously, because then you'd have to come to my house and steal it, and that wouldn't be cool. But yeah, if you do not have a drill, find like a dad or an uncle or a brother or somebody super manly who, will probably have something like this in their tool shed or their toolbox, whatever. I'm using a 1/16 drill bit. That was the smallest one that we have, and I use this one because it's the closest in size to the screw on the button without going over. You can always step it up in size if it's not big enough, but if you go too big, you're gonna be screwed basically, so to speak. So anyway, on with the show. What you do is you're going to take your cap off. I have this blue stuff in there. This is Handy Tack. This is a neat little tip if your button starts to fall off like mine did. Mine started to lose its grip, so I put Handy Tack in there, and that's stuff you can just you can find just about anywhere in the craft section of your store. And it will keep it on there, but when you want to change the batteries, it still comes off pretty easily. And it's basically just like putting gum there, except not quite as sticky. So, anyway, just like you were going to change the batteries, you unscrew your little button there, and set that aside for now. And then you're going to want to pull your top out. So, what you're going to do is on this top part, you find the little micro button right there, that little black button. And I think hopefully you guys can see this. Just above that button, I drilled a tiny little hole. There's about 2 or 3 millimeters of space in between the two, but don't go off that measurement. I will show you how to measure it in just a second for yourself, so that way it works like it's supposed to. Two things to keep in mind while drilling. Right underneath where you're drilling, that's where all the wires are, so be really careful. If you drill into those wires, more likely than not, you are going to bust your screwdriver, and you're going to have to take it even more apart and replace the wires or resolder stuff. And I'm guessing you don't want to do that. That's probably why you're watching this video, because you're lazy like me. I'm the kind of person who doesn't really want to take apart my Xbox controller to salvage a micro button and then solder it on top of my button. The other thing to keep in mind, oh, by the way, if you do that, that's cool. You're way smarter than I am, and you're either that or you're way less lazy than I am. So if you do that, you're cool. But if you're lazy like me, this is a cool thing. Anyway, tangent. Another thing to keep in mind is this battery plate. You're going to drill into it just a little bit. Part of the hole is going to go into that, so you want to hold on to that. So I don't know if you can how well you can see that, but a little bit of that hole, just at that very top point there, is in the battery plate. So anyway, the way you want to measure that, the whole theory behind how this thing works, is you have the two little pegs right there on your button that are sticking down, and they're on either side of that screw. And those are for keeping them in place while they slide in the slider. But we're actually going to use those for a different purpose. You want to drill your hole so that I'll put this so you guys can see it, so that that rear peg actually will press down on the micro button when it's screwed in place like that. So that's where you want it to be. That's how you measure it. If yours is more or less than my 2 or 3 millimeters, that's where you need to put it. So that way when you press down on your button, it will press the micro button with that rear peg. So, having accomplished that, making sure it screws in there, you're just going to want to put your top back in. I find it's easiest to put it back in the way it's supposed to go, just like that, lined up with the buttons, and then turn it and line it up, the button up, the micro button that is, with the slider. And what's really cool is those teeth up top right here slide right into place. Couldn't be simpler. So now your button, I don't know if you can see that right there. Yep, just right down there. So hopefully you figured out what to do next by now. That little nice little hole that you've made, you put your cap, or not your cap, your button back in there, and you screw it in. That convenient little hole that you've drilled. And what I do is or what I did, I guess I should say, is I screwed it in until it ran without me doing anything, and then I backed it off until it stopped. That'll give you a really hair trigger. If you don't like that, you can back it off a little bit more. I like to have just a little bit of click, but you want to have it as tight as possible, without still moving and to your liking. So I like to keep just a little bit of click in there. And then you just put your cap back on, just like so. And now, there it is, just like that. Yeah, so that's my 10th Doctor Sonic Screwdriver mod. The only one disadvantage I found to this is that you actually can't, or I guess I should say, while you're sliding the screwdriver up, it has to activate. You can't actually slide it up without or down without activating the light and sound. So if that's going to be a problem for you, then this might not be the mod for you. But it's the cheapest, easiest, fastest way I can find to do it, and it does not change the outward appearance at all, which I think is really cool. So yeah, that's it. If I was too vague or if I didn't explain something well enough, feel free to leave me a comment down in the little thing. Also, if you just want to say, hey, you're awesome, or, hey, you suck, that's cool. Please don't just say, hey, you suck. But, you can. But don't. Anyway, thanks, guys. Yeah. And have fun, I guess, Dalek hunting, or, running from... Probably more likely running from Daleks and locking doors behind you, or, the like.